Have you ever looked at your palm and noticed an unusual mark? A crescent moon, or perhaps an M etched into the lines of your hand. It might seem like a random curiosity at first glance, but what if I told you that this mark could be a map to your soul's deeper purpose? What if it's not a coincidence, but a sign from the universe itself? You're not alone. Thousands of years ago, ancient cultures believed that the lines on our palms, the markings on our skin, held deep, spiritual meanings. The shape of a hand, the lines, the mounts, they were all seen as divine symbols, guiding us along the path we were meant to walk. And in many ways, this ancient wisdom still holds true today. It wasn't until I was in the midst of a personal crisis that I looked down at my palm and saw it for the first time. I had been going through what felt like the darkest time of my life. My career was in shambles, relationships were falling apart, and I was questioning everything I thought I knew about who I was. It was in this moment of despair, when I felt completely lost and uncertain, that my eyes were drawn to the subtle mark on my palm. A crescent moon. It caught my attention in a way I couldn't ignore. I had seen palmistry readings before, but I never took them seriously. However, this mark, right there on my hand, felt different. It felt personal. It felt like it was calling me to pay attention, to look deeper into what was happening inside me. I began to research the meaning behind this crescent moon symbol, and to my surprise, what I discovered was nothing short of profound. The crescent moon has long been associated with the divine feminine, intuition, and the cycles of life. It signifies a time of transformation, of shedding old layers and stepping into a new version of yourself. And suddenly, everything clicked. I wasn't just going through a crisis. I was being called to change. To heal. To grow. Have you ever felt like your life is out of alignment, like something is missing, but you can't quite put your finger on it? That's how I felt for so long, like I was living a life that wasn't truly mine. I was following the expectations of others, chasing external success, trying to fit into molds that were never designed for my soul. I spent years living in the shadow of what I thought I should be, not who I truly was. And maybe you can relate. Have you ever felt like the life you're living isn't the one you were meant to lead? That maybe, just maybe, there's something more to you, something deeper. It's like a whisper in your soul, a nudge to step out of the routines and habits that no longer serve you. This was the moment I realized that the crisis I was facing wasn't an end, it was an invitation. What if your current pain, your confusion, your feeling of being lost, is actually a sign that your soul is awakening? What if, just like me, you are on the verge of a beautiful transformation, one that starts by recognizing the hidden marks of your soul's path? As I delved deeper into the symbolism of the crescent moon, I realized something powerful. It wasn't just a mark on my palm. It was a symbol of the cycles of life. The waxing and waning of the moon mirror the natural ebb and flow of energy in our lives. Sometimes we are in periods of growth, and other times we must retreat and reflect. Both are necessary. This is a crucial insight, one that I want you to carry with you on your journey. Life is not linear. It's cyclical. You will go through phases of expansion and contraction, times when everything feels like it's coming together and other times when you feel like you're falling apart. This is normal. It's the dance of life. So if you've ever found yourself stuck in a phase where things aren't flowing, where you feel out of sync with your true self, remember this: it's not a sign that something is wrong. It's simply a phase. You are exactly where you need to be right now, even if it doesn't feel like it. The crescent moon on my palm reminded me of this truth, and it gave me permission to stop rushing through life, to stop trying to force things to work. I began to realize that by allowing myself to flow with the natural rhythm of the universe, I could align myself with my true path. Imagine for a moment, what would it look like if you trusted the natural cycles of your life? What if you stopped forcing things to happen, stopped pushing so hard, and simply allowed the universe to guide you? How would it feel to trust that your soul knows the way, even when your logical mind doesn't? For me, this realization was freeing. I stopped fighting against the changes in my life and began to embrace them. I let go of the need to control the outcome of every situation and focused instead on trusting the process. And the most beautiful part? As I began to trust, everything started to fall into place. The right opportunities began to show up, and the right people came into my life. My journey began to unfold in a way that felt authentic and true to me. Here's the spiritual lesson I want you to take with you today: there are no coincidences. Every experience, every symbol, every moment is leading you toward your soul's deeper purpose. You are not here by accident. Your life is a divine journey, one that is constantly unfolding. And just like me, if you're feeling lost or uncertain right now, it's okay. This is part of your journey. Trust that the universe is guiding you, even when you can't see the way. The marks on your palm, the signs in your life, they are all messages from your soul, pointing you toward your true path. Have you ever noticed any unique marks or symbols on your hands, your body, or even in your life that seem to have a deeper meaning? What if these symbols are not random, but signs that are guiding you to your true purpose? How can you begin to trust the natural rhythms of your life and stop fighting against the flow of the universe? If this resonates with you, take a moment to look at your hands. What do you see? What stories are your palms telling you? The journey you're on is unique to you, and the marks you carry are not by chance. They are your soul's blueprint, your map to self-discovery and healing. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these signs can guide you through the inevitable crises that arise along the way, and how embracing your inner truth can be the catalyst for your deepest transformation. Take a deep breath. You are on the path of awakening, and everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Have you ever felt like you were standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into a deep abyss, unsure if you should leap or turn back? Maybe you're in a place where everything feels uncertain, overwhelming, and out of control. What if I told you that this moment of crisis, the very feeling that you want to escape, might be the exact doorway to your healing and transformation? Crisis, it's a word we all dread. It's associated with pain, with turmoil, with the feeling that everything is falling apart. But what if I told you that crisis isn't the end of your story? What if it's actually the beginning of something beautiful? There was a time in my life when I felt like I was in freefall. The life I had spent years building suddenly felt like it was crumbling around me. My career, which I had poured so much of myself into, was no longer fulfilling. My relationships were strained, and my sense of identity was fragmented. It felt as though I was losing everything that had once given me a sense of security and purpose. I wasn't just experiencing a bad day or a difficult month. I was in the midst of a full-blown crisis. I was lost, confused, and overwhelmed by emotions I didn't know how to process. The feeling of being trapped in this space of uncertainty was suffocating. I longed to find the escape hatch, to turn the dial and make everything go back to how it used to be. But the more I tried to control the situation, the more it slipped through my fingers. This was when I had to confront something that I hadn't wanted to admit: I had been running from myself. I had been so caught up in the roles I played in my life, my job, my relationships, my social persona, that I had forgotten to connect with the one person who mattered the most, me. This crisis, painful as it was, forced me to stop running. I'm sure you've experienced a crisis in your own life. Maybe it wasn't a career collapse or the end of a relationship, but perhaps you've had a moment where it felt like everything was falling apart. Maybe it was the loss of a loved one, the end of a dream, or simply the feeling of being stuck in a life that no longer brings you joy. Crisis comes in many forms, but one thing is always the same: it's uncomfortable. It shakes you to your core, challenging everything you thought you knew about yourself and your place in the world. Have you ever felt like you were in a place where nothing made sense anymore? Like you were drowning in confusion, not knowing which direction to turn? That was me not too long ago. Here's the thing: crisis doesn't just show up out of nowhere. It is often the result of an inner conflict, a misalignment between who you are and the life you're living. It's a deep, spiritual nudge that says, wake up. Something isn't working. You need to change. At the time, I didn't recognize this as a call to transformation. All I could see was the pain. But, looking back, I can now see that the crisis was the universe's way of telling me it was time to shed the old layers and step into the new. Here's a powerful truth: crisis is not a punishment, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to pause, to reflect, and to make a choice, to stay where you are, stuck in the comfort of the familiar but unfulfilling, or to embrace the unknown and step into the growth that awaits you. This is the part of the story where things start to shift. When you allow yourself to lean into the discomfort, you create space for transformation. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but what if I told you that the pain you're feeling is the very thing that will lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself? What if, instead of fighting the crisis, you could embrace it as the gateway to your next chapter? When I finally stopped resisting, I began to see that this crisis wasn't the end of the road. It was the beginning of a deeper connection with myself. I started asking questions I had avoided for years. Questions like, what do I really want, who am I, when all the labels are stripped away, and, what is my soul trying to tell me? It wasn't easy, and there were days I wanted to give up. But with each step, I felt myself growing stronger, more attuned to my true desires and calling. Now, I'm not saying that crisis is easy or that it doesn't bring pain, it does. But I am saying that the crisis you're facing might be the best thing that's ever happened to you. It's like the moment when a caterpillar is in the cocoon. It feels trapped, suffocated even, but the transformation happening inside is nothing short of miraculous. Crisis creates space for clarity. It forces you to ask yourself the tough questions that you may have been avoiding. It breaks down the walls you've built around yourself and helps you rediscover what truly matters. And most importantly, it prepares you for the person you are meant to become. So if you're in the midst of your own crisis right now, I invite you to pause and breathe. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's painful. But what if this is the moment where everything shifts? What if this is your opportunity to shed the old and make space for the new? What if you could step into the most authentic version of yourself, a version that you've been hiding for far too long? The spiritual lesson here is this: crisis is a catalyst for change. It is not something to be feared but something to be embraced. It is the universe's way of helping you align with your higher purpose. Every time you face a crisis, you are being given the opportunity to transform. And remember this: you don't have to face it alone. Trust that you are supported by a higher power, whether you call it the universe, God, or your own inner wisdom. You have everything you need within you to rise above this challenge. Are you currently facing a crisis, either big or small, in your life? What is it teaching you? How can you shift your perspective on crisis, seeing it as an invitation for growth rather than a roadblock? What steps can you take today to begin embracing the transformation that is calling to you? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a step back and reflect on your current situation. Rather than trying to fix it or push it away, sit with it. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort, but also recognize that it's part of a bigger process. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something far greater than you can imagine. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the key to healing lies in acceptance, and how this simple act can help you begin to heal from the inside out. Take a deep breath. You are exactly where you need to be. Have you ever tried to fight against something that seemed impossible to change? Maybe you were battling with your own emotions, struggling to control your circumstances, or holding on to a dream that no longer served you. What if the key to true healing isn't in the fight, but in the surrender? What if you could let go of the need to control everything and, in doing so, discover a deep peace and freedom? Acceptance. It's a word that many of us struggle with. It's often misunderstood, mistaken for resignation or giving up. But true acceptance is not about giving in to everything, it's about acknowledging what is, without resistance, and allowing it to be a part of your journey. And in doing so, you open yourself to healing, growth, and transformation. I'll never forget the moment I realized that my need to control everything was exactly what was keeping me stuck. I had spent years fighting against the flow of life, thinking that if I just pushed hard enough, I could make things work the way I wanted. I thought I could bend reality to my will if I just tried hard enough. But the more I fought, the more I felt like I was swimming against a current that I couldn't outrun. The harder I tried to control, the more chaotic my life became. And it wasn't until I reached my breaking point that I realized what had been missing all along: acceptance. I was holding on to old beliefs, outdated expectations, and a version of myself that no longer existed. And as long as I continued to resist, I was only prolonging my suffering. It was a powerful realization, one that took time and inner work to fully integrate. But the day I truly understood the power of acceptance, everything changed. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like no matter how hard you tried, things just weren't working out? Maybe you found yourself holding on to something, a relationship, a career, or a belief, because you thought it was what you were supposed to do, even when it no longer felt right. That's the kind of inner turmoil I was in. The fear of letting go, of accepting that things weren't as I had imagined, was suffocating. It felt like I was stuck in a constant tug-of-war between my heart and my mind. I've since learned that this kind of internal conflict is rooted in resistance. Resistance to what is. When we resist the present moment, we are rejecting the flow of life and fighting against what's already here. But what if I told you that the very act of surrendering could bring more peace than you ever imagined? This is where the true power of acceptance lies, in surrendering to the present moment, exactly as it is. When you stop fighting, when you stop trying to change everything around you, you create space for something greater to emerge. You stop being in a constant state of stress, and instead, you begin to flow with the natural rhythms of life. I want to share an important insight here: acceptance does not mean approval. It doesn't mean that you have to like everything that's happening in your life. It doesn't mean that you condone negative behavior or that you have to stay in situations that are unhealthy. Acceptance simply means that you stop resisting what is. When I began to practice this in my own life, everything started to shift. I stopped trying to force things to be different and began to embrace them as they were. It wasn't easy, but it was freeing. I stopped clinging to expectations and started to honor what was actually happening in my life. I allowed myself to feel the pain, the disappointment, the fear, but I didn't let those emotions control me. I accepted them as part of the journey. Imagine for a moment, what would it feel like to stop fighting against your current circumstances? What if, instead of pushing and striving, you could simply accept what is, knowing that this is exactly where you need to be? What if surrendering to the flow of life could be the key to unlocking peace and freedom? This doesn't mean that you stop trying or that you stop dreaming. It simply means that you stop trying to control the outcome. You release the need to micromanage every aspect of your life, and instead, you trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Acceptance has a beautiful way of opening your heart to new possibilities. When you let go of the need to control, you make room for divine timing to work its magic. Things begin to fall into place without the struggle. For me, this meant letting go of relationships and situations that no longer served me. It meant accepting that I had outgrown old patterns and beliefs. And in the space that was created, new opportunities, relationships, and ideas flowed in effortlessly. This isn't just about accepting what you can't change, it's about creating the space for change to happen naturally. True acceptance invites transformation. Here's the spiritual lesson: acceptance is a form of surrender to divine timing. It is the act of trusting that what is happening right now is exactly what needs to happen for your soul's growth. When you practice acceptance, you align yourself with the flow of the universe. You stop resisting, and in that release, you find peace. You allow yourself to heal by letting go of the struggle. The next time you face a challenge or encounter something you don't understand, try this: instead of fighting it, simply acknowledge it. Say, "I accept this moment as it is." Trust that this moment is leading you to where you need to go, even if you don't have all the answers right now. Are there any areas in your life where you are resisting what is? How can you begin to surrender and accept them as they are? What would it look like if you stopped fighting against your current circumstances and allowed yourself to simply accept them? How can you trust that everything in your life is unfolding according to divine timing, even when you don't understand it. If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to practice acceptance. Whether it's something small or something large, allow yourself to sit with what is. Trust that the universe is guiding you toward your greatest good. In the next chapter, we'll dive into how embracing your true self, without the masks you wear, can lead to profound spiritual awakening and healing. You'll learn how to let go of the facades and step fully into who you are meant to be. Take a deep breath. You are exactly where you need to be, and everything is unfolding in perfect harmony. Have you ever caught yourself pretending to be someone you're not? Maybe you've worn a mask in your career, in your relationships, or even within your own family. But deep down, you feel the dissonance between who you are and who you're trying to be. What if you could stop pretending and embrace the truth of who you are? What if you could let go of all the facades and step into your most authentic self, fearlessly and unapologetically? It's time to stop hiding. It's time to remove the masks you've been wearing and allow the world to see the real you. Because here's the thing, the person you've been pretending to be isn't your true self. And until you shed those layers, you'll never experience the freedom that comes with truly being yourself. There was a period in my life when I wore so many masks, I wasn't even sure who I really was anymore. I had the perfect mask, the one I wore at work, where I appeared confident, successful, and driven. I had the nice mask, the one I wore in my relationships, always putting others' needs ahead of mine. I even had the happy mask, the one I wore with my friends, pretending everything was fine when deep inside, I was struggling. For years, I thought I was doing a good job of managing all these masks. I convinced myself that the world needed me to be all these versions of myself, and that if I stopped pretending, I would lose everything. But over time, the weight of these masks became unbearable. They began to suffocate me. I realized that every mask I wore was a form of self-rejection. By pretending to be someone I wasn't, I was hiding the most beautiful parts of myself, my true, unfiltered essence. And as much as I tried to keep up the act, I was exhausted, disconnected, and emotionally drained. It wasn't until I faced a major emotional breakdown that I was forced to confront this truth: I could no longer live a lie. Have you ever felt like you were living a double life? Maybe you've been putting on a facade, pretending to have it all together, when deep inside, you feel empty and disconnected. Maybe you've been so focused on meeting other people's expectations, your bosses, your partners, societies, that you've forgotten what you truly want, need, and desire. I know how that feels. I was living for others, trying to fit into roles that weren't truly mine. And in doing so, I lost touch with the most important person, myself. It wasn't until everything started to fall apart that I realized how deeply I had been rejecting who I really was. The pain of living this way is real. It's the pain of constantly feeling like you're not enough as you are. It's the exhaustion of trying to be someone else in order to be accepted, loved, or valued. It's the inner conflict between your true self and the mask you wear, always trying to hold it together, but never quite feeling whole. Have you ever felt that internal pull between who you really are and the person you've been pretending to be? It's like living in two worlds, and no matter how much you try to blend the two, it never feels right. Here's the truth that I had to learn the hard way: the more you pretend to be someone else, the further you get from your true self. The masks you wear might protect you for a while, but eventually, they will start to suffocate you. And the longer you wear them, the harder it becomes to know who you really are beneath all the layers. When I finally accepted that I no longer wanted to live behind these masks, I had to ask myself some tough questions. Who am I, really? What do I stand for? What do I want in my life, not what other people want for me? And, most importantly, who do I need to become to honor my truth? The process of letting go of these masks wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had to start with self-acceptance, the willingness to look in the mirror and embrace all parts of myself, even the ones I had been trying to hide. I had to stop being ashamed of my imperfections, my flaws, and my vulnerabilities. These were the very things that made me uniquely me. What I realized through this process is that you can only heal and grow when you allow yourself to be fully, unapologetically yourself. No more pretending. No more hiding. You are enough, just as you are. So, what would it look like if you stopped pretending? Imagine, for a moment, that you could take off all your masks, at work, in your relationships, and with yourself. What would your life look like if you stopped worrying about other people's expectations and simply lived in alignment with who you truly are? I can tell you from personal experience, the moment I started shedding my masks, I started feeling alive again. I began to attract people who appreciated me for who I truly was, not who I was pretending to be. Opportunities aligned with my true passions, and I felt more at peace than ever before. My life began to flow with ease, and my energy became lighter because I no longer had to pretend or perform. And the beauty of it all? When you step into your authentic self, you create space for others to do the same. When you allow yourself to be real, you inspire others to be real with you. This is where true connection happens. When we stop pretending and start showing up as our true selves. The spiritual lesson here is simple, yet profound. You cannot heal or transform while hiding who you truly are. Your soul is calling you to show up as your authentic self. It is in the truth of who you are that your power lies. When you stop pretending, you open up to the possibility of living a life that is aligned with your deepest desires. You begin to live from a place of authenticity, which is where true peace, love, and fulfillment can be found. And as you embrace your true self, you will see that you are more than enough, just as you are. Are you currently wearing any masks in your life? What parts of yourself are you hiding from the world or even from yourself? What would it feel like to take off these masks and show up as your true, authentic self? How can you begin to honor your truth and embrace the parts of yourself that you've been rejecting? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to reflect on the masks you've been wearing. What would it take for you to start peeling them away, one layer at a time? Remember, you are perfect exactly as you are. The more you honor your authentic self, the more peace and joy will flow into your life. In the next chapter, we'll explore how embracing vulnerability can be the key to unlocking even deeper healing and connection. You'll learn how opening up to others, without fear or shame, can be the pathway to experiencing profound transformation. Take a deep breath. The real you is more than enough, and it's time to let the world see that truth. Have you ever found yourself holding back, keeping your true feelings hidden for fear of being judged or rejected? What would happen if you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, to truly open your heart, to let others see the raw, unfiltered parts of you? What if I told you that vulnerability is the key to healing and connection? It's not a weakness, it's a superpower. We live in a world that often tells us to be strong, to have it all together, to never show our weaknesses. But deep down, we all know the truth. Healing happens when we allow ourselves to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved, just as we are. Vulnerability isn't something to fear. It's the doorway to deeper connections with others and to your own inner peace. For much of my life, I wore the armor of strength. I prided myself on being the person who always had it together. I didn't let people see my weaknesses, my doubts, or my struggles. After all, wasn't strength something to be admired? Wasn't the ability to handle everything on my own a sign of independence? But as much as I tried to keep my emotions in check, to put on a brave face for the world, there was a deep, aching emptiness inside. I wasn't truly allowing myself to feel, because to feel meant to be vulnerable, and vulnerability felt like weakness. It wasn't until a close friend of mine opened up about their own struggles that I realized how much I had been holding back. They were honest about their pain, their fears, their insecurities, and I saw how much courage it took for them to share their truth. In that moment, I felt a shift within myself. What if I could do the same? What if I could allow myself to be vulnerable, not just with others, but with myself? It was a difficult choice. Letting go of the armor I had worn for so long meant facing fears of judgment, rejection, and vulnerability that I had spent my life avoiding. But slowly, I began to open my heart. Have you ever felt like you couldn't truly be yourself around others? Maybe you've been afraid that if you showed your true feelings or shared your deepest struggles, people would think less of you or turn away. I've been there. I've kept my pain hidden, believing that vulnerability was something to be avoided at all costs. I thought that if I showed any weakness, I would lose respect, love, or trust. But here's the thing, when we suppress our vulnerability, we suppress our healing. We hold on to our pain, our shame, and our fear, thinking that by keeping them hidden, we protect ourselves. But in reality, we are just preventing ourselves from moving forward. What I learned the hard way is that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes immense courage to allow ourselves to be seen in our rawest, most imperfect state. And it's through this openness that we begin to heal. Have you ever felt like there's a part of you that you keep hidden from the world? A part of you that you're afraid to show because it feels too fragile, too raw. I want to invite you to consider this: the healing you seek begins the moment you allow yourself to be vulnerable. The insight that changed everything for me was this: vulnerability is the birthplace of true connection and healing. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you invite others to meet you in your authenticity. You create space for deeper, more meaningful connections, because vulnerability shows that you are human, that you experience the same fears, doubts, and emotions as everyone else. And when you open yourself in this way, others are more likely to do the same. But the beauty of vulnerability goes beyond connection with others, it's about your connection with yourself. When you allow yourself to feel, to grieve, to express your emotions without fear of judgment, you are practicing radical self-acceptance. You are honoring your emotional truth, and in doing so, you begin the process of healing. Vulnerability also creates space for forgiveness, of others, and most importantly, of yourself. When we stop hiding behind masks and walls, we can finally let go of the shame, guilt, and fear that have kept us trapped in cycles of self-rejection. So, what would it look like if you allowed yourself to be vulnerable? What if you stopped trying to protect yourself from the pain and instead, let yourself feel it fully, without shame? I can tell you from my own experience that the moment I allowed myself to be vulnerable was the moment I began to heal. I started having deeper conversations with people. I began to share my struggles, my fears, and my dreams without fear of judgment. And to my surprise, I wasn't met with rejection. Instead, I found understanding, compassion, and support. And even more importantly, I began to understand myself on a deeper level. I stopped hiding from my own emotions and started accepting them as a part of my journey. Vulnerability became my doorway to self-compassion and forgiveness. Imagine what your life could look like if you allowed yourself to be vulnerable. What if you shared your truth, even if it was scary? What if you allowed yourself to feel the full spectrum of your emotions, without trying to suppress them or push them away? True healing comes when we stop running from our emotions and instead, allow ourselves to sit with them. When we embrace vulnerability, we allow our wounds to be seen, and in the light of acceptance, they begin to heal. The spiritual lesson here is simple yet profound: vulnerability is the key to both inner and outer transformation. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you open the door to healing, connection, and self-acceptance. You are not broken because you have emotions. You are not weak because you feel fear or sadness. Your vulnerability is the very thing that allows you to grow and evolve. It's your soul's way of asking you to shed the armor and step into your full power. Are there parts of yourself that you are afraid to share with others? What emotions or experiences have you been hiding behind a wall of protection? How would your life change if you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, to truly feel your emotions and share your truth? What can you do today to practice vulnerability in your relationships, whether with others or with yourself? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a step toward vulnerability today. Whether it's sharing a part of yourself with someone you trust, or simply acknowledging and accepting your emotions, know that every small step toward vulnerability is a step toward healing. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the concept of forgiveness, how releasing past hurts, both toward others and yourself, can create profound inner peace. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for spiritual awakening and healing. Take a deep breath. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it is your strength, your gateway to true freedom and healing. Have you ever felt weighed down by a past hurt, something that happened years ago, but still lingers in your heart and mind? Maybe it's an old betrayal, an unresolved conflict, or a mistake you made that you can't seem to forgive yourself for. What if I told you that holding on to that pain is only keeping you stuck? That true freedom begins the moment you let go of the past and forgive. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful spiritual practices. Not just for others, but for yourself. Because here's the truth, holding on to anger, resentment, or guilt only keeps you tethered to the past. But the moment you forgive, you create space for peace, healing, and transformation to enter your life. I spent a lot of years carrying the weight of old wounds. I held grudges, sometimes toward others, but often toward myself. I'd replay past arguments, reliving moments of pain and regret. And every time I thought about them, I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the weight of those unresolved feelings, the heaviness of an old hurt still active in my body and mind. One of the hardest things I had to forgive was a betrayal I'd experienced in a relationship. It wasn't just the act of betrayal that hurt me, it was the deep sense of abandonment and unworthiness it left behind. I couldn't understand why someone I loved and trusted would hurt me that way. For years, I carried that hurt, thinking that by holding on to it, I was somehow protecting myself. But the truth was, I was only hurting myself more. The anger, the sadness, and the resentment had become a constant companion. Every time I thought about the betrayal, I felt the tightness in my chest, the knot in my stomach. It was as if the past was still alive inside me, taking up space in my present life. I knew I had to let go, but the idea of forgiving felt impossible. I felt like forgiving would mean letting that person off the hook, excusing their behavior, and erasing my pain. I couldn't fathom how to forgive something so deeply painful. But here's what I eventually realized. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or saying it was okay. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional chains that are keeping you bound to the past. It's about choosing peace over pain, and it's a gift you give to yourself, not to the other person. Have you ever struggled with forgiveness? Maybe there's someone in your life who hurt you deeply, someone whose actions left a scar on your soul. It could be a partner, a family member, a friend, or even a stranger. Or maybe the person you need to forgive is yourself, for mistakes you've made or choices you regret. The thing is, forgiveness is one of the hardest things we can do. It feels unnatural, especially when the hurt is deep and the pain is fresh. We think that holding on to our anger or resentment somehow protects us, or that by refusing to forgive, we're punishing the person who wronged us. But in reality, all we're doing is keeping ourselves stuck in the past, unable to move forward. I remember feeling like I couldn't forgive. The pain felt too raw, too unfair. The injustice of what had happened kept me trapped in a cycle of hurt. I kept telling myself that I couldn't let go until the other person apologized or made things right. But the truth was, waiting for them to make things right was only keeping me stuck. Here's the spiritual insight that changed everything for me: forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. When you forgive, you free yourself from the emotional weight of the past. You stop letting someone else's actions control your present and your future. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what happened. It doesn't mean you forget the pain or that you allow yourself to be hurt again. It simply means you choose to release the hold that the past has over you. You choose peace, and in doing so, you open up space for healing. Forgiveness is also about forgiving yourself. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the one staring back at you in the mirror. We all make mistakes, we all have regrets, and we all have moments we wish we could change. But when you hold on to guilt, shame, or self-blame, you're keeping yourself stuck in a cycle of self-punishment. You are worthy of compassion, love, and forgiveness. So, what would it feel like to forgive? Imagine, for a moment, releasing the weight of that past hurt. Imagine no longer carrying the anger, the resentment, or the guilt. What if you could step into your life today, unburdened by the emotional baggage of yesterday? I'll be honest, it wasn't easy. It took time. It took prayer, reflection, and a lot of self-compassion. But the moment I made the choice to forgive, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. The anger that had once consumed me began to dissolve. The sadness that had kept me trapped started to fade. I no longer needed that pain to define me. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Forgiveness is the key to unlocking your emotional freedom. It's the moment you choose to let go of the past and step into your future with an open heart. And when you forgive, you begin to heal, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Your soul can finally breathe, and you can move forward, unburdened by the past. The spiritual lesson here is clear: forgiveness is a form of release, a release of the past, a release of the pain, and a release of the control that past hurts have over your present. When you forgive, you free yourself to live fully in the present moment. Forgiveness is not about condoning what was wrong, it's about choosing your peace. You are no longer bound to the past. The person who hurt you no longer has the power to dictate your future. You are free to heal, to grow, and to step into the life you deserve. Is there someone in your life that you're struggling to forgive? What is it that you're holding on to by not forgiving them? Are there areas where you need to forgive yourself? What guilt or shame can you release to step into your fullest self? How would your life change if you made the choice to forgive and let go of the past? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to release just one thing from the past, whether it's a person, a mistake, or an old grudge. Forgiveness is a process, but each step you take toward forgiveness brings you closer to healing. In the next chapter, we will explore the power of self-compassion and how showing kindness to yourself can be the foundation of all spiritual healing and growth. Self-compassion is the bridge between self-judgment and self-love. Take a deep breath. You have the power to let go, and you deserve the peace that forgiveness brings. Have you ever been your own harshest critic? Maybe you're constantly berating yourself for your mistakes or beating yourself up over things you wish you could change. What if I told you that being kind to yourself, offering the same love and care to yourself that you would to a dear friend, was the key to healing and growth? It's time to stop the cycle of self-judgment and start practicing self-compassion. Because here's the truth: you cannot heal what you don't acknowledge, and you cannot grow if you don't nurture yourself along the way. Self-compassion isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity on your spiritual journey. For many years, I was my own worst enemy. I had this internal voice that constantly criticized me: "You're not good enough, you should be doing more, you messed up again, why can't you get it together?" No matter what I did, it never felt like enough. I wasn't meeting my own expectations, and it made me feel like I was failing at life. It wasn't just the big mistakes that triggered this inner critic. It was the little things too: the days when I didn't feel motivated, the moments when I let myself rest instead of working harder. In every situation, I heard that voice saying, "You're weak. You're lazy. You're not living up to your potential." I used to think that this kind of harsh self-talk was what motivated me to be better. I thought that if I was hard on myself, I'd push myself to do more, be more, and achieve more. But what I didn't realize was that this constant self-criticism was actually preventing me from healing and moving forward. It was causing more harm than good. Then, something shifted. I was going through a particularly tough time, feeling overwhelmed with everything in my life. Instead of pushing through it with more pressure, I decided to try something different. I told myself, what if I treated myself with the same kindness I would treat a friend going through something similar? I started practicing self-compassion. I allowed myself to feel my emotions without judgment. I gave myself permission to be imperfect. And slowly, I began to notice a shift in my energy and mindset. I realized that I wasn't broken or flawed, I was simply human, and I deserved kindness, especially from myself. Have you ever struggled with feelings of guilt or shame for not being perfect? Maybe you found yourself constantly striving to meet some impossible standard, whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your own self-image. And when you fall short, you beat yourself up, telling yourself that you're not good enough. I understand that pain. I spent so much of my life thinking that in order to be worthy of love or success, I had to be perfect. I had to perform, achieve, and prove my worth. But the harder I tried to meet these expectations, the more I felt like I was failing. And no matter how hard I worked, I never felt like I was enough. It's exhausting, isn't it? The cycle of constantly pushing yourself, never feeling like it's enough, and then criticizing yourself when things don't go as planned. We've all been there, and it's incredibly draining. But here's the truth, you are enough, just as you are. Your worth is not dependent on what you achieve or how well you perform. Your worth is inherent. You deserve to be loved, accepted, and supported, especially by yourself. Here's the spiritual insight that changed everything for me: self-compassion is the foundation of healing. When you practice self-compassion, you stop seeing yourself as someone to fix or correct. Instead, you see yourself as someone worthy of love and kindness, no matter what mistakes you've made or how imperfect you may feel. Self-compassion allows you to honor your humanness. It invites you to embrace your emotions, your struggles, and your imperfections without judgment. It tells you, it's okay to not have everything figured out. It's okay to make mistakes. You are still worthy of love and care. The moment I started being kinder to myself, I noticed a shift in how I interacted with the world. Instead of living in fear of failure, I began to live with a sense of acceptance and peace. I allowed myself to make mistakes and to learn from them, rather than condemning myself for them. I was able to move through life with more grace and ease. Imagine, for a moment, treating yourself the way you would treat your best friend. If your friend was going through a tough time, you wouldn't berate them or tell them they weren't good enough. You would offer them kindness, support, and compassion. You would encourage them to rest and recharge. Why not offer yourself that same level of care? Self-compassion is the most powerful way to heal your soul. It creates space for growth, for reflection, and for learning. When you stop the cycle of self-criticism and embrace self-compassion, you free yourself from the constant pressure to be perfect. You give yourself permission to be human, and that's where real healing begins. When I started practicing self-compassion, I found myself moving through life with a sense of peace. I stopped chasing perfection and began embracing the journey. I began to honor my emotions instead of suppressing them. And the more I did this, the more I felt at ease with who I was. Self-compassion doesn't mean you stop striving for growth. It doesn't mean you stop wanting to improve. It simply means that you give yourself permission to be imperfect while you work toward your goals. You release the need for perfection and embrace the beauty of the journey. The spiritual lesson here is this: you are worthy of love, compassion, and care, especially from yourself. Self-compassion is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to acknowledge your struggles without judgment and to offer yourself the love and kindness you deserve. When you practice self-compassion, you invite healing into your life. You allow yourself to rest, to reflect, and to grow without the weight of self-criticism. You give yourself permission to be human and to move through the ups and downs of life with grace. How do you currently treat yourself during difficult times? Are you your own harshest critic, or do you offer yourself kindness and understanding? What would it look like to practice self-compassion today? How could you show yourself more love and care, especially when things don't go as planned? How can you begin to release the pressure of perfection and embrace the beauty of your imperfect journey? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same compassion and love that you would offer a dear friend. Remember, you are worthy of peace, of healing, and of love, especially from yourself. In the next chapter, we'll explore how embracing your true purpose can help you step into your fullest potential. When you align with your soul's calling, you unlock the power to create the life you've always dreamed of. Take a deep breath. You are enough, just as you are, and you deserve your own compassion and love. Have you ever felt like you were meant for something more? That there's a deeper calling within you, something you're meant to do in this lifetime, but you just can't seem to figure it out? What if I told you that the answer is already within you, that your soul knows exactly what it's here to do, and all you have to do is listen? Living in alignment with your soul's purpose isn't just a lofty idea. It's the key to true fulfillment. When you connect with your purpose, you unlock a life of meaning, passion, and joy. So why does it feel so difficult to discover that purpose? Why do we often feel lost or disconnected from our true calling? For years, I lived with the feeling that there was something more I was meant to do, but I just couldn't pinpoint it. I worked hard, I followed the typical path, education, career, relationships, but something was missing. No matter how much I achieved or how many goals I met, I still felt empty inside, like I was living someone else's life, not my own. I had moments of clarity, glimpses of what I truly wanted. I would catch myself daydreaming about a life where I was doing work that felt meaningful, where I was helping others in a way that aligned with my heart. But then doubt would creep in. Who am I to do that? What if I fail? I would push those dreams aside and return to the safe path, the one that everyone expected me to walk. But deep down, I knew I wasn't truly living. I was going through the motions. I was surviving, not thriving. It wasn't until I hit a breaking point, feeling exhausted, disconnected, and burned out, that I finally allowed myself to pause and listen to my soul. I began asking myself, what would I do if fear didn't exist? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? The answers didn't come immediately, but over time, I started noticing the small sparks of joy, excitement, and fulfillment that emerged when I allowed myself to think beyond my limitations. That was the beginning of my journey toward aligning with my soul's purpose. It wasn't about finding a perfect path, it was about following the breadcrumbs of passion, curiosity, and love. And when I began to honor those, I felt a sense of deep alignment that I had never experienced before. Have you ever felt stuck in a life that isn't quite right for you? Maybe you followed the traditional path, the one that society, family, or friends expected of you, but deep inside, you feel disconnected. You don't feel the excitement, the fire, or the sense of purpose that you know you're capable of. I understand that pain. I've been there, feeling like I was living on autopilot, following a script that wasn't mine. Every day felt like a repetition of the same routine, with little joy or passion. I felt like I was checking boxes but not really living. For a long time, I didn't believe I was worthy of living a life that felt truly aligned with my soul. I thought purpose was something that only a few lucky people got to experience. But here's the truth, your soul's purpose isn't something you have to search for in the outside world, it's already within you. It's the things that bring you joy, the things that make you come alive, the things that speak to your heart. The problem isn't that your purpose doesn't exist, it's that fear, doubt, and societal conditioning have made you forget it. But I promise you, it's there. And once you tap into it, everything shifts. The key insight I've discovered on this journey is this: your soul's purpose is about alignment, not perfection. It's not about finding one correct path that leads to ultimate success, it's about discovering what makes you feel alive, what brings you joy, and what allows you to be your true self. It's about living authentically, not according to someone else's definition of success. When I stopped trying to figure it all out and instead focused on what brought me joy and fulfillment, I started aligning with my purpose. It wasn't a grand revelation, it was a gradual unfolding. I started paying attention to the things that sparked passion in me. I noticed what I was naturally drawn to, the things that made me feel connected to myself and to others. And I began saying yes to those things. Your purpose isn't something you need to search for out there in the world, it's something that already exists within you, waiting to be recognized. It's your heart's true desire. So, what would it look like for you to live in alignment with your soul's purpose? Imagine waking up every day feeling excited about what you're doing, feeling that deep sense of fulfillment that comes when you're living authentically. Imagine knowing that you're on the right path because it feels right in your bones. When you align with your soul's purpose, everything changes. You begin to attract the right people, opportunities, and experiences into your life. You start feeling a sense of peace, because you're no longer trying to fit in or live according to someone else's expectations. You are simply living as you, authentically, fully, and with passion. But here's the secret: aligning with your soul's purpose doesn't mean everything will be easy. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks, and there will be moments of doubt. But when you're aligned with your true purpose, those challenges don't feel like obstacles, they feel like opportunities for growth. And you'll have the courage and strength to keep moving forward because you know you're on the right path. The spiritual lesson here is this: when you align with your soul's purpose, you step into the flow of your true power. Your purpose is not something that you create or force, it's something that you uncover and step into. It's about remembering who you truly are and living authentically from that place. When you live in alignment with your purpose, you begin to experience true fulfillment. You're no longer chasing external validation or living according to someone else's standards. You are living from your heart, and that's where true joy and abundance lie. What brings you joy? What are the activities, people, or experiences that make you feel alive? Are you currently living in alignment with your soul's purpose? If not, what steps can you take to start moving in that direction? What fears or doubts are holding you back from stepping fully into your purpose? How can you begin to release them? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to reconnect with your soul's purpose. Ask yourself, what makes me come alive? And then take one small step toward honoring that. It might not be a grand leap, but every small step will lead you closer to a life of meaning and fulfillment. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the importance of embracing your inner power and how stepping into your true strength can create massive transformation in your life. Your power has always been there, it's time to claim it. Take a deep breath. Your soul's purpose is waiting for you to remember it. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to truly step into your power? To fully embrace your strength and walk through life with confidence, knowing that you are capable of overcoming anything that comes your way? What if I told you that the power you've been seeking has always been inside you, waiting to be unleashed? Too often, we forget just how powerful we are. We look outside ourselves for validation, for strength, for answers, but the truth is, everything you need to create change and transformation in your life is already within you. The key to unlocking that power is trusting yourself and stepping into the person you are meant to be. I'll be the first to admit, I spent years doubting my own strength. I felt like I was constantly playing catch-up, always feeling like I wasn't enough. I would look at others who seemed confident, strong, and sure of themselves, and think, why can't I be like that? I would downplay my accomplishments and downsize my talents, convincing myself that I wasn't worthy of success or happiness. But everything changed the moment I realized that my strength wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about having it all figured out or never feeling scared. It was about owning who I was, embracing my vulnerabilities, and knowing that I had the ability to handle whatever life threw at me. The turning point came when I faced one of the biggest challenges of my life. I found myself in a situation where I could no longer rely on others for validation or support. I had to dig deep within myself to find the courage and strength to move forward. And that's when I truly understood, strength isn't about how much you can handle, it's about how much you can trust yourself through the process. That moment of self-trust was a game changer. I stopped seeking external validation and instead turned inward, embracing my own resilience, creativity, and determination. And when I did, I started seeing the world through a different lens. The challenges no longer seemed impossible, they became opportunities for growth. I learned to trust that I had the power within me to navigate whatever came my way. Have you ever felt powerless? Maybe you've faced a situation that left you feeling small, insignificant, or incapable. Perhaps you've experienced a setback that made you question your abilities or even your worth. It's easy to feel disempowered when life gets tough or when you're overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control. I understand that pain all too well. There were moments when I felt like life was happening to me, rather than for me. I felt like I was at the mercy of external circumstances, like everything in my life was out of my control. This feeling of helplessness is incredibly difficult to overcome, especially when it feels like you're not in the driver's seat of your own life. But here's the thing, you are not powerless. No matter how impossible or overwhelming things may seem, you have the power to change your perspective, to shift your mindset, and to take control of your own journey. Your inner power has always been there, it just requires you to step into it. The insight that changed everything for me is this: true power is not about controlling the world around you, it's about controlling your response to it. You cannot control every situation, but you can always control how you choose to react. You have the power to decide how you show up in the world, how you respond to challenges, and how you carry yourself through adversity. When I learned to tap into my inner power, I stopped giving my energy away to things and people that drained me. I stopped seeking approval from others and started trusting myself. I realized that I didn't need to have all the answers, and I didn't need to be perfect. What I needed was to trust my ability to handle whatever life threw my way. This shift in perspective was incredibly freeing. I stopped seeing obstacles as roadblocks and started seeing them as opportunities to grow stronger. I realized that my inner power was like a muscle. It grew stronger the more I trusted it, used it, and allowed it to guide me through life. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment, what would it feel like to truly trust your own power? What if you could face each day with the confidence that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way? What if you could step into each challenge knowing that you have the strength within you to overcome it? When you embrace your inner power, life becomes less about surviving and more about thriving. You stop reacting out of fear or insecurity, and instead, you respond with confidence and calm. You understand that while you can't control everything around you, you can always control how you show up and how you move forward. Your inner power is the foundation for everything you want to create in life, whether it's healing, success, or fulfillment. The more you align with your own strength, the more you begin to see the incredible possibilities that exist for you. Your potential is limitless when you trust in your ability to create, to grow, and to transform. The spiritual lesson here is this: your inner power is a reflection of your trust in yourself. When you believe in your ability to overcome challenges and trust your intuition, you unlock the limitless potential that lies within you. This is where true strength comes from, not from the outside world, but from the power you already possess. When you tap into this power, you become unstoppable. You begin to see life not as a series of challenges to be feared, but as a series of opportunities to rise, to grow, and to shine. You are no longer waiting for permission to be strong, you are claiming your power now. Where in your life do you feel powerless or stuck? What would it look like to take back your power in that situation? Are there areas where you're seeking validation or approval from others instead of trusting yourself? How can you start shifting that mindset? How can you begin to practice trusting yourself more in your daily life? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take one step today to embrace your inner power. It might be as simple as choosing to trust your intuition, setting a boundary, or taking action towards something that scares you. Your inner strength is waiting to be unleashed, you have everything you need within you. In the next chapter, we will explore the importance of surrendering and letting go. Letting go of control is one of the most powerful things you can do on your spiritual journey. It's the moment you trust the process and the universe, and allow yourself to be guided toward your highest good. Take a deep breath. You are more powerful than you know, and the world is waiting for you to step into your true strength. Have you ever tried so hard to control every detail of your life, only to find yourself exhausted, frustrated, and still not getting the results you desire? What if I told you that the key to transformation isn't in trying harder, but in letting go of control? What if the path to your true healing and growth is found in surrendering to the flow of life and trusting the universe to guide you? We live in a world that constantly tells us to hustle, to control, to plan every move. But the most powerful thing you can do for your spiritual journey is to surrender. To trust that the universe has a plan for you, and that sometimes, letting go is the only way to allow your dreams to unfold. Surrender was a concept that terrified me for years. I've always been a person who liked to have a plan, to know what was coming next. I believed that in order to succeed, I had to control every detail, every conversation, every step, every outcome. If something went wrong, it was a sign I wasn't doing enough, that I hadn't controlled it enough. I constantly carried this pressure to make things happen, and the harder I tried, the more exhausted I became. But when I hit rock bottom, I realized something had to change. I was holding on to so much, trying to manage every aspect of my life, and I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I was paddling upstream, with no current to carry me. That's when I had a moment of clarity. I understood, for the first time, that I didn't need to have everything under control. I didn't need to know exactly how everything would unfold. What I needed was to trust. To trust myself, to trust the process, and to trust that the universe had my back, even if I couldn't see how things would work out. The moment I truly surrendered, something miraculous happened. I stopped fighting against the current of life and started allowing it to guide me. I released the burden of needing to control every outcome, and that's when things began to flow with ease. My life began unfolding in ways I couldn't have planned or predicted, and it felt right, every step of the way. Have you ever felt the weight of trying to control every aspect of your life? Maybe you've tried to plan every detail of your career, your relationships, or your future, only to feel constantly frustrated, anxious, or disappointed when things don't go as expected. I understand that pain. I spent so much time trying to control outcomes, and when they didn't align with my expectations, I felt like I had failed. The truth is, control is an illusion. The more I tried to hold on tightly, the more I felt like I was losing grip on my own happiness. I wasn't allowing life to flow, I was suffocating it with my need to control. The desire to control often comes from fear. We fear the unknown, and so we try to predict and manipulate the future. But here's the thing, fear and control are two sides of the same coin. They keep us stuck, stagnant, and disconnected from the natural flow of life. And the more we try to control, the more we actually block the flow of abundance, growth, and possibility that's available to us. Here's the insight that shifted everything for me: surrender is not about giving up, it's about letting go of resistance. When you surrender, you aren't giving up on your dreams or aspirations. You're simply releasing the need to control how or when they will happen. You're trusting that life will unfold in its own divine timing. When I learned to surrender, I stopped trying to force things to happen on my timeline. I allowed myself to take a step back and trust that the universe was guiding me toward what I needed, even if it didn't look exactly like I expected. I started embracing uncertainty instead of fearing it, and that's when things began to shift. Surrendering doesn't mean being passive or complacent. It means letting go of the need for control and opening yourself up to the infinite possibilities that exist when you trust the process. It's about believing that the universe has your best interest at heart, even when things don't go according to plan. Imagine, for a moment, what it would feel like to let go of the constant pressure to control. Imagine releasing the grip you've had on your expectations and allowing yourself to trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should. What would it feel like to let go of your fear of the unknown and embrace the flow of life with open arms? Surrendering isn't about giving up on your dreams, it's about trusting that your dreams are on their way, even if you can't see the exact path to them right now. It's about having the faith that everything is unfolding in divine timing, and that the universe is supporting you every step of the way. When I started practicing surrender, I noticed a sense of peace and freedom that I had never experienced before. I stopped stressing over every decision and every outcome, and instead, I started living with a sense of trust. I began to flow with life, and life began to flow with me. The more I surrendered, the more I found myself in the right places at the right times, meeting the right people, and experiencing the right opportunities. It was as if the universe was conspiring in my favor. And the more I trusted, the more I realized that the universe had a far better plan for me than I could have ever imagined on my own. The spiritual lesson here is this: surrender is the ultimate act of trust. It's the recognition that we don't have to control every outcome in our lives to achieve our desires. When we surrender, we align with the natural flow of the universe, and in doing so, we allow our true path to unfold. Trusting the process doesn't mean passivity, it means releasing resistance and allowing things to happen organically. It's about having faith that, in the grand scheme of things, everything is working out exactly as it's supposed to. The more you trust, the more you will see how beautifully the universe has your back. What areas of your life are you trying to control too tightly? How can you begin to release some of that control and trust the process? How does the idea of surrendering make you feel? What fears come up when you think about letting go? Can you recall a time in your life when surrendering to the flow of life led to a positive outcome? How did that experience shift your perspective? If this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment today to surrender. Let go of the need to control the outcome of your journey, and instead, trust that the universe is guiding you toward exactly where you need to be. Trust that you are supported and that your path is unfolding with divine timing. This is the final chapter of our journey together. But remember, your spiritual awakening and healing don't end here. They continue to unfold as you walk in alignment with your soul's purpose, trusting in your inner power, and surrendering to the flow of life. You are on the right path, and everything you've learned so far is just the beginning of your transformation. Take a deep breath. Surrender. Trust. And allow life to carry you toward your highest good.